I needed her laptop to finish a client presentation. Mine had crashed and Emily was in the shower. I opened it without thinking twice. We'd been married 32 years, high school sweethearts who'd built everything together. The screen lit up, showing an unsent email addressed to Marcus. The first line punched through my chest. Last night was perfect. He has no idea. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I scrolled through the rest. Hotel names, inside jokes mocking how oblivious I was, plans for their next escape during his so-called business trip. Marcus, my best friend since college, Emily's supervisor at work, the guy who'd been at our wedding, who came to our anniversary dinners. I heard the shower turn off. My 53-year-old heart hammered like I was 20 again, but this time from betrayal instead of love. I closed the laptop carefully, placed it exactly where I'd found it, and walked to the kitchen. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger, grey hair, tired eyes, and a face that suddenly understood what a fool looked like. I whispered to the empty room, "I'll burn this down slowly." Emily came downstairs in her robe, humming something cheerful. She poured coffee and barely glanced at me. I'd become furniture in my own home. She checked her phone, smiled at the screen, then quickly locked it when she noticed me watching. "Working late again tonight," she said, not asking, just informing. Third time this week. She didn't even bother making the lie sound convincing anymore. "Sure, no problem," I replied, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. Marcus texted me minutes later. "Can't do our Thursday golf. Something came up at work." Thursday, the same day Emily claimed she had late meetings. The pattern was so obvious now that I couldn't believe I'd missed it for months, maybe longer. I watched Emily text someone, her fingers moving fast. She smiled again, that private smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Then she deleted the message and stood up. "I should get ready," she said, disappearing upstairs. I sat there, coffee growing cold in my hands, realizing I'd been living with two strangers. My wife had become someone I didn't recognize, and my best friend had been betraying me while shaking my hand. They thought I was too old, too comfortable, too trusting to ever figure it out. They were wrong. The next morning, Emily announced another late night. She'd showered, put on makeup, and wore the perfume I'd bought her last Christmas, the one she claimed she was saving for special occasions. Apparently, Marcus was a special occasion. "Be safe," I told her, memorizing every detail. What time she left, what she wore, the way she checked her phone obsessively. I'd already called in sick to work. At 53, I had plenty of vacation days saved up. Nobody questioned it. That evening, I followed her car from a distance, staying 3 vehicles back. We'd lived in this city our entire adult lives. I knew every shortcut, every route. She didn't go toward her office downtown. Instead, she took the highway west toward the business district where the nicer hotels clustered. My stomach turned. This wasn't spontaneous. This was routine. She pulled into the parking lot of a Marriott. I parked across the street and waited. 15 minutes later, Marcus's silver Lexus rolled in, the same car that had been parked in my driveway countless times for barbecues and birthday parties. They met near the entrance, and Emily laughed at something he said. They looked like teenagers sneaking around. They walked inside together. Hotel room 714. I watched the window on the 7th floor until the lights came on. Then I took photos. Time-stamped, GPS-tagged photos. I drove home in silence, the photos burning on my phone. 32 years of marriage. We'd met in high school, got married at 21, built careers and a home together. We'd survived raising kids, financial struggles, his father's death, her mother's illness. I thought we were solid. I thought wrong. Emily came home 3 hours later, claiming exhaustion from back-to-back meetings. Her hair was slightly messed up, her lipstick reapplied hastily. She yawned dramatically and headed straight for the bedroom. I stayed downstairs, staring at nothing. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being her husband and started being her alibi. The man who paid half the mortgage while she built a secret life with someone else. Marcus was 55, married to Sophia for 28 years. They had 2 kids in college. Sophia was kind, always baking something for neighborhood gatherings. She'd helped Emily through a health scare 2 years ago, and now her husband was sleeping with her friend. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in my office and started a folder on my computer. Evidence. I downloaded the photos from my phone, backed them up to 3 different locations. Then I opened Emily's laptop again while she slept upstairs. Her email was still logged in. I started reading everything. 8 months. The affair had been going on for 8 months. The emails painted a picture I wish I could unsee. They'd started during a work conference in Atlanta. Late-night drinks turned into kissing in a hotel hallway. Marcus had made the first move, but Emily hadn't hesitated. They'd been careful at first, meeting only during business trips. Then they got comfortable, lazy, arrogant. Thursday afternoons became their routine. Marcus would approve Emily's timesheets showing her at client meetings. She'd leave work early, meet him at rotating hotels. They'd spend 2 hours together, then she'd come home and lie to my face. The emails showed something worse than just sex. They'd built an emotional affair too. Marcus complained about Sophia gaining weight after their youngest was born. Emily mocked my boring routine of golf and old movies. They shared dreams about running away together once their kids graduated and their spouses were dealt with. I was a problem to be dealt with. After 32 years of loving her, supporting her career, being faithful through every challenge, I was just an inconvenience standing between her and her fantasy. I closed the laptop as dawn broke. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The initial shock had crystallized into something colder, something focused. I wasn't going to yell or beg. I was going to dismantle their lives piece by piece, the same way they'd dismantled mine. I called my brother that morning. Kyle was a divorce attorney, not in our state, but he knew people. I need a referral, I told him. The best you know. What happened? Kyle asked, concern flooding his voice. Emily's having an affair with Marcus. Silence, then. Jesus, Daniel, I'm sorry. I'll send you 3 names, all sharks, document everything. I'd already started. Over the next week, I became a different person. The trusting husband disappeared, replaced by someone methodical and patient. I installed recovery software on the home computer and retrieved every deleted message. I checked credit card statements and found hotel charges going back months. Emily had gotten sloppy, or maybe she'd stopped caring whether I found out. I created spreadsheets tracking their meetings. Patterns emerged, always Thursdays, always between 2 and 5 p.m., always at hotels within 20 minutes of Emily's office. Marcus used his corporate card, meaning his company had been unknowingly funding his affair. That detail interested me. Marcus was Emily's direct supervisor. He'd approved her promotion 6 months ago, right in the middle of their affair. He'd also approved her raise and her glowing performance reviews. I pulled Emily's personnel file from her desk. She'd brought it home to review something. The timing was too perfect. Her promotion had come unusually fast, skipping over 2 more senior colleagues. Favoritism, abuse of power, corporate ethics violations. I smiled for the first time in days. I needed to tell Sophia, but not yet. She deserved to know, but I needed every piece of evidence first. One conversation, one confrontation too early, and Marcus would cover his tracks. Emily would delete everything. They'd circle the wagons and I'd look like a paranoid old man making accusations. So I kept playing the role of oblivious husband. I smiled when Emily kissed my cheek before leaving for her late meetings. I texted Marcus about rescheduling golf. I acted normal while building a case that would destroy them both. Emily started staying later, getting bolder. She'd come home at 9 p.m. smelling like wine and someone else's cologne. She stopped bothering with elaborate excuses. Work stuff, she'd say with a shrug, heading straight for the shower. I'd wait until she fell asleep, then return to my evidence folder. I found text messages she'd forgotten to delete, photos of them at restaurants I'd never been to, a Valentine's Day card Marcus had given her. I'd given her flowers that same day, and she'd barely thanked me. My chest hurt constantly, a physical ache that wouldn't fade, but I couldn't break down, not yet. Grief was a luxury I'd afford myself after I finished what I started. Thursday came again. Emily left at 1 p.m. Marcus texted me, buried at the office, rain check. I followed them to a different hotel, room 512 this time, Maury photos, Maury evidence. I was building something airtight. 2 weeks into my surveillance, I discovered the promotion scandal ran deeper. I'd logged into Emily's work email. She'd left her password on a sticky note in her desk drawer, hidden under papers. Sloppy. I found email chains between Marcus and HR. He'd pushed hard for Emily's promotion, citing exceptional performance and leadership potential. He'd overruled objections from other managers who'd questioned why Emily was jumping ahead of more experienced candidates. One email stood out. Marcus to HR director, trust me on this one. Emily's earned it. I'll stake my reputation on her performance. He'd staked his reputation on her, all right, just not in the professional sense. I downloaded everything, personnel files, performance reviews, budget approvals showing Marcus had given Emily the largest raise in their department, email threads discussing team dynamics where Marcus consistently defended Emily while criticizing others. The power imbalance was blatant. Marcus was her boss. He controlled her career trajectory, her salary, her daily work assignments. Even if their affair had been genuine love, which the mocking emails proved it wasn't, it was still textbook workplace misconduct. Their company had strict policies. I'd looked them up. Relationships between supervisors and subordinates had to be disclosed to HR immediately. Failure to disclose could result in termination. Neither had disclosed anything. They'd hidden it, leveraged it, and profited from it while breaking every rule in the employee handbook. I saved everything to an encrypted drive. I finally reached out to Sophia, carefully. "Hey, I need some advice on a renovation project," I texted her. "Emily's swamped and you have great design sense. Coffee sometime." She replied immediately, "Of course, tomorrow at 10, Starbucks on Elm." I arrived early, rehearsing what I'd say. Sophia showed up right on time, all smiles and warmth. She'd been nothing but kind to both of us for years. Seeing her made the anger flare again, not at her, but at what Marcus had done to her. We talked about renovations for 15 minutes. I showed her photos I'd pulled from design websites. She gave thoughtful suggestions. Then she mentioned Marcus was traveling a lot lately for work, stressed and distant. "He's not traveling," I wanted to say. "He's sleeping with my wife." But I held back. Not yet. I needed one more piece, the final proof that would make everything undeniable. I needed to catch them in the act in a way that left zero room for excuses or manipulation. "Thanks for the help," I told Sophia, gathering my things. "Let's do this again soon." She hugged me goodbye, completely unaware that her entire world was about to implode. I walked to my car feeling sick. She didn't deserve this. Neither did I, but Marcus and Emily had made their choices, and now those choices would come with consequences. Thursday arrived again. I'd rented a hotel room across the hall from where they usually met. I'd figured out their pattern. Room 714 at the Marriott was their favorite. I checked in that morning using cash and a fake name, told the clerk I was in town for business. At 2 p.m., I positioned myself near the ice machine with a clear view of the hallway. My phone was ready, set to video mode. Emily arrived first, checking her phone nervously. She wore the blue dress I'd complimented last week. For him, not for me. Marcus showed up 5 minutes later. They didn't even look around before embracing. He kissed her right there in the hallway, his hands on her waist. She laughed and pulled him toward the room. I filmed everything, the kiss, the room number, the timestamp. Marcus swiping his credit card to open the door, them disappearing inside, Emily's laughter echoing. I stood there for a moment, the phone heavy in my hand. 32 years, gone, deleted like it meant nothing. I walked back to my room and sat on the bed. This was it. I had everything I needed now. Emails, photos, videos, financial records, work documents, an airtight case. That evening, I printed everything. The folder was 3 inches thick, a complete dossier of their betrayal. Tomorrow, I'd give Sophia the truth, then I'd burn their lives down. I met Sophia at a quiet cafe the next morning. "I need to talk to you about something serious," I'd told her, "about our families." Her face shifted from curious to concerned. "Is everything okay?" I slid the folder across the table. My hands were steady now, but my heart hammered. "I'm sorry, you need to see this." She opened it slowly. The first page was a printed screenshot of the hotel footage. Marcus and Emily kissing in the hallway, timestamp visible. Sophia's face went pale. She flipped through the pages mechanically. Emails, text messages, credit card statements, photos of them at restaurants, the personnel file showing Marcus's role in Emily's promotion. Her hands started shaking. "How long?" she whispered. 8 months that I can prove, maybe longer." Tears fell silently down her face, but her expression hardened with each page. She was processing, calculating, understanding. When she reached the end, she carefully closed the folder and looked at me. "Thank you for telling me," she said, her voice frighteningly calm. "Most people would have kept quiet. You deserved to know." She stood up, folder clutched to her chest. "I'm calling a lawyer today, he won't see this coming." I watched her walk away, spine straight despite the devastation. She was stronger than Marcus had ever given her credit for. Now it was Emily's turn. I didn't have to wait long. An hour after I got home, Marcus called. My phone buzzed with his name, and I let it ring twice before answering. "Daniel, we need to talk." His voice was frantic, desperate. I hung up. He called again. I declined it. Emily burst through the door 20 minutes later, wild-eyed and panicked. Sophia must have called her immediately. "Daniel, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked calmly. I was sitting in the living room, divorce papers already on the coffee table. I'd picked them up from the attorney that morning. Explain 8 months of lying, the hotels, the mocking emails about how stupid I am. Her face crumbled. I never meant. You never meant for me to find out. There's a difference. I stood up and she took a step back. I know about Marcus approving your promotion, about the favoritism, about every Thursday afternoon, room 714. She tried to cry, but it looked rehearsed, performative. I'd seen her genuine tears before, when her mother died, when our daughter graduated. This wasn't that. You have until tonight to pack your things, I said. I've already moved money into a separate account. You'll get what's fair in the divorce, nothing more. Sign the papers or drag this out, your choice. Where will I go? Maybe Marcus has room. You two can finally be together. Her face twisted with something between anger and desperation, but she didn't argue. She knew I had evidence. She knew she'd lost. Emily packed in silence while I watched from the doorway. Clothes, toiletries, some books. She moved mechanically, occasionally glancing at me like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. I never stopped loving you, she finally whispered, folding a sweater. Yes, you did. You just stopped pretending otherwise. She flinched. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You and Marcus were going to deal with your spouses, remember? I read the emails, Emily, all of them. Her hands froze. She hadn't realized how much I knew. Daniel. Save it, you're 51 years old. We've been together since we were 17, and you threw it away for someone else's husband. I shook my head. I genuinely hope it was worth it. She tried to respond, but nothing came out. She finished packing and carried her suitcase downstairs. At the door she paused. I'm sorry. So am I. She left. The house fell silent in a way it never had before, empty, but somehow lighter. I sat in the living room, staring at the divorce papers she'd signed before walking out. 32 years, reduced to signatures on legal documents. I didn't cry, the grief would come later. Right now, I had one more move to make. I opened my laptop and addressed an email to the company's ethics department. Subject line, formal complaint regarding workplace misconduct. Then I attached everything. The next few days were surreal. The house felt enormous without Emily's presence, but it wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. I could breathe for the first time in months. No more wondering where she was or who she was with. No more pretending everything was fine. I hired a cleaner to deep clean the bedroom. Threw out the sheets, the pillows, anything that reminded me of her. I rearranged furniture, reclaimed spaces she dominated. The house slowly became mine again. Friends started calling, having heard through the grapevine that we'd separated. I kept the explanations vague. We grew apart. It happens. Nobody needed the details yet. Let them wonder. The truth would come out soon enough. Marcus tried calling twice more. I blocked his number. Emily texted, "Can we talk, please?" I didn't respond. At work, people noticed I seemed different, lighter, more engaged. My boss commented that I seemed refreshed after my sick days, if only she knew. At night, I reviewed the evidence I'd sent to the ethics department. It was comprehensive, damning, and completely anonymous. I'd used a burner email account, routed through a VPN. They'd have no way to trace it back to me. All I had to do now was wait. The company had mandatory investigation protocols. Once they started digging, they'd find everything. Marcus and Emily had thought they were clever. They weren't, they were just arrogant. The investigation started quietly. I heard about it through Sophia, who'd stayed in touch. Marcus got called into HR yesterday, she told me over the phone. He came home looking terrified, won't tell me why. I smiled, interesting timing. Emily had apparently gotten the same summons. She texted me in a panic. Did you report us to my company? I didn't reply, let her twist in the wind, uncertain and afraid. She deserved that much. The company was thorough. They froze both Marcus's and Emily's access to their work systems, standard procedure during ethics investigations. It pulled their emails, their calendar invites, their expense reports. Every hotel charge Marcus had put on the corporate card was now under scrutiny. The evidence I'd provided gave them a roadmap, dates, times, locations. They just had to verify it against company records. And according to Sophia, who'd been interviewed as Marcus's spouse, the timeline matched perfectly. Marcus had claimed his hotel stays were for client meetings, but the company had no record of clients in those cities. He'd fabricated entire business trips to cover his affair. That was more than ethical violations, that was fraud. Emily had been easier to catch. Her calendar showed client meetings during the exact times she'd been at hotels with Marcus, but when HR contacted the supposed clients, none of them had met with her on those dates. They'd built their affair on lies that were about to collapse. 3 weeks after I sent the report, the hammer fell. Marcus was terminated first on a Tuesday morning. Sophia called me that afternoon. It's done, they fired him, walked him out with security. What reason did they give? A violation of ethics policy, abuse of authority, and misuse of company resources. She laughed, bitter and sharp. 28 years of marriage, and he threw it away for an affair that got him fired. Emily was terminated the same day, 2 hours later. I only found out because my daughter called, confused and upset. Mom just called me crying. She said she lost her job. What's happening, Dad? I'd eventually have to tell the kids everything. They were adults, 26 and 28, but this would still shatter their image of their parents. Later, first I needed this to finish playing out. Your mother made some choices, I told her carefully. She'll need to explain them herself. The terminations made internal waves. Emily and Marcus had both been senior enough that their sudden departure raised questions. The official company line was vague, separated for violation of company policy. But corporate environments are small worlds. Word spread fast. Whispers turned to conversations. People started piecing it together. 2 senior employees, one a supervisor of the other, both fired simultaneously for ethics violations. It didn't take long for colleagues to guess the truth. Their professional reputations were destroyed before they even cleared out their desks. The social fallout was swift and brutal. Emily and Marcus had been fixtures in our extended friend group, couples we'd known for decades, neighbors, former colleagues. When news of the affair and the firings spread, the group fractured. Some people reached out to me with sympathy. Others avoided everyone involved, unwilling to choose sides. A few tried to defend Emily and Marcus, claiming these things happen and we shouldn't judge. Those people got dropped from my life immediately. Sophia was more ruthless. She posted a carefully worded statement on Facebook. After 28 years of marriage, I'm filing for divorce due to infidelity and dishonesty. I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. Thank you to those who have supported me during this difficult time. She didn't name Marcus specifically, but everyone knew. The comments section exploded with support for her and thinly veiled condemnation of Marcus. Emily tried damage control, reaching out to mutual friends with her version of events, but her story kept shifting. First it was a misunderstanding, then a mistake, then feelings she couldn't control. Nobody bought it. Marcus went silent on social media entirely. According to Sophia, he'd moved into a cheap apartment across town and was job hunting, but his termination reason followed him. Background checks revealed the ethics violation, and companies ghosted him after initial interviews. Turns out, nobody wants to hire a senior manager fired for abusing their authority to conduct an affair. Emily faced the same problem. Her industry was small and word traveled fast. I was rebuilding while they were collapsing. Sophia and I became unlikely allies, comparing notes on lawyers and divorce proceedings. She was getting an aggressive settlement. Marcus had been the primary earner, and his misconduct gave her leverage. He's begging me to reconsider, she told me during one of our coffee meetings. Says Emily doesn't want him anymore now that they're both unemployed. I wasn't surprised. Emily had wanted the fantasy, the secret affair, the thrill, the escape from ordinary life. She hadn't wanted the reality, 2 broke, disgraced middle-aged people trying to build a life from ruins. Marcus showed up at my door late one night, 3 months after the terminations. He looked terrible, unshaven, thinner, wearing clothes that hung loose on his frame. "Can we talk?" he asked. I almost closed the door, but curiosity won out. "You have 5 minutes. He stumbled through an explanation that wasn't really an explanation. The affair just happened. He never meant to hurt anyone. He was going through something. Standard cheater nonsense, repackaged with desperation. "Did you report us?" he finally asked. "To the company?" I looked him in the eye. "Why would I need to? You did this to yourselves." "My life is destroyed, Daniel. I can't find work. Sophia's taking everything. Emily won't even return my calls." His voice cracked. "You did this." "No," I said calmly. "You did this. Every choice, every lie, every hotel room, that was you. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences." He stared at me, broken and desperate. "We were friends." "We were, and then you slept with my wife." The divorce finalized 6 months after Emily moved out. It was relatively smooth. She didn't fight me on the split because she knew I had evidence that could make things much worse for her in court. We divided assets down the middle. The house became mine, she took half the equity. Retirement accounts were split. I kept the car, she took the SUV. Professional, clinical, emotionless. On the day we signed the final papers, Emily looked at me across the attorney's conference table. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No, I'm just done with you. She nodded slowly. I made a mistake. You made 1,000 mistakes over 8 months. You don't get to reduce it to one bad decision. She didn't argue. She signed the last page, gathered her copies and left. I watched her walk away and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just indifference. That evening I went home to my empty house and made dinner. Real dinner, not the frozen meals I'd been surviving on. I poured a glass of wine, put on an old album Emily had hated, and sat on the porch. The sunset was beautiful, orange and pink streaking across the sky. I'd forgotten how to notice things like that, too caught up in the chaos of unraveling betrayal and executing revenge. But now it was over. The divorce was final. Marcus and Emily were someone else's problem. Sophia had moved on with her life. And I was free. Life slowly regained normalcy. I started going to the gym, something I'd abandoned years ago. Lost 15 pounds, started sleeping better. The physical transformation mirrored the internal one. I was shedding the weight of the marriage, becoming someone new. Work became engaging again. I took on projects I'd been avoiding, traveled for conferences, reconnected with colleagues I'd drifted from. People noticed the change. You seem different, my boss said during a review. Maury present. I was present, for the first time in years. I wasn't distracted by a failing marriage or the quiet suspicion that something was wrong. I knew exactly where I stood. Friends rallied around me, the real ones. Golf outings resumed, dinners happened, weekends filled with activities I'd forgotten I enjoyed. I was rediscovering the man I'd been before Emily and I grew apart, before I became just a convenient husband instead of a real partner. Emily, meanwhile, struggled. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard she was working retail part-time while job hunting. Her industry had effectively blacklisted her. The termination followed her everywhere. Marcus was worse off. Sophia's divorce settlement had taken most of his assets. He'd moved twice, each apartment smaller than the last. No one in their field would hire him. And their relationship, over. Emily had apparently realized that Marcus, without status or money, wasn't the fantasy she'd imagined. They'd imploded within 4 months of being unemployed together. They'd traded everything for nothing. I ran into Emily at a grocery store a year after the divorce. She was alone, pushing a cart with generic brands and clearance items. She'd aged, more than a year should account for. The weight of consequences showed in every line on her face. She saw me and froze. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Daniel, she finally said. It's Emily. Awkward silence stretched between us. The produce section suddenly felt too small. How are you? She asked, her voice tentative. Good, really good actually. It was true. I'd started seeing someone, a woman I'd met through a friend, someone with no connection to my past. Nothing serious yet, but it felt healthy. Emily's face tightened. That's great, I'm happy for you. She didn't look happy, she looked exhausted. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she continued, for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know. I appreciate that, I interrupted gently, but I'm not the one you need to apologize to. I've moved on. She nodded, tears welling up. I destroyed everything, didn't I? I could have been cruel, could have listed every consequence, every loss, every mistake, but what was the point? She was already living with them. You made choices, I said simply. We all have to live with ours. I walked away, leaving her standing there. No anger, no triumph, just closure. Marcus found me at a coffee shop 6 months later. I'd deliberately chosen a place far from my usual spots, but somehow he tracked me down. He looked even worse than when he'd shown up at my door, older, defeated, worn down by life. I don't want to bother you, he said, standing awkwardly by my table. I just needed to say something. I gestured to the empty chair. Go ahead. He sat down heavily. You ruined my life. I sipped my coffee, unsurprised. Is that what you came to say? Everything I had, my career, my marriage, my reputation, gone because of you. His voice shook with anger and something else, desperation. Because of me, I set down my cup. I didn't make you sleep with my wife. I didn't make you abuse your position to promote her. I didn't make you lie to your wife, your company, or your friends. you did all that. You reported us. I exposed the truth, there's a difference. He slumped in the chair. It wasn't supposed to end like this. How was it supposed to end, Marcus? You and Emily running off together into the sunset while Sophia and I just, disappeared. He had no answer. You're 57 years old, I continued. You made adult decisions, now you're living with adult consequences. Don't come to me looking for absolution. He left without another word. I watched him shuffle out, a man hollowed out by his own choices. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no pity, just indifference. He was a stranger now. 2 years after everything fell apart, I was genuinely happy. The woman I'd been seeing, Anna, a school counselor with kind eyes and a quick laugh, had become a serious relationship. She knew everything about Emily and Marcus, and she'd helped me process the final pieces of anger and hurt I'd been carrying. You're different than when we met, she told me one evening. We were cooking dinner together, something simple and easy. Lighter. I feel lighter, I admitted, like I finally put down something heavy I'd been carrying too long. My kids had eventually learned the full story. They'd been angry at Emily, disappointed in Marcus, and supportive of me. We'd rebuilt our relationships on honesty instead of the careful pretense I'd maintained during the marriage's decline. My son had said something that stuck with me. You could have fallen apart, Dad. A lot of people would have, but you handled it. I had handled it, not perfectly, not without pain, but with purpose and control. I'd taken back power over my own life instead of being a passive victim of someone else's choices. The house was truly mine now, redecorated, reorganized, filled with new memories. I'd started hosting dinner parties again, game nights with friends, family gatherings. Life was full in ways it hadn't been for years. Emily sent a text on what would have been our 35th anniversary. I hope you're doing well, you deserved better. I deleted it without responding. Some doors needed to stay closed. I saw Marcus one last time, completely by accident. I was at a bookstore, browsing the mystery section, when I heard a familiar voice. He was at the register, buying something, looking tired but slightly more put together than our last encounter. Our eyes met across the store. Recognition flickered, followed by resignation. He walked over slowly. Daniel. Marcus. Silence hung between us, two men who'd once been friends, now strangers bound only by shared history and mutual destruction. I'm working again, he said quietly. It's support, nowhere near what I had, but it's something. That's good. Sophia remarried, did you know? I nodded. She told me months ago, sending a photo of her and her new husband at a small wedding ceremony. She looked genuinely happy. She deserves it, Marcus said, his voice hollow. She deserves better than what I gave her. Yes, she does. He looked at me with something like regret. I never apologized, not really, for what I did to you, to our friendship, to everything we had. Would it change anything if you did? He thought about it. No, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry, Daniel. I destroyed something good for something selfish and stupid, and I've paid for it every day since. I believed him. The man standing in front of me wasn't the arrogant friend who'd betrayed me. He was someone broken and rebuilt into something humbler, sadder, wiser. I accept your apology, I said finally, but we're not going back to what we were. I know, he nodded slowly. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did, what I lost. He walked away without looking back. I watched him leave, feeling something close to peace. Not forgiveness, that would take more time, maybe forever, but closure. The anger that had fueled me through the investigation, the divorce, the exposure, it was finally gone. I bought my books and went home to Anna, to the life I'd rebuilt from ashes. 3 years after finding that email, I stood in my backyard at a small gathering. Anna was beside me, laughing at something my daughter said. My son was grilling burgers, his wife helping in the kitchen. Friends filled the space with warmth and conversation. This was my life now, not the one I'd planned with Emily decades ago, but something better, something built on truth instead of comfortable lies. I thought about the man I'd been that night I opened her laptop. 53, trusting, blindsided. I'd felt ancient then, like life was over, and all that remained was managing the wreckage. But I'd been wrong. Life hadn't ended, it had transformed. I discovered strength I didn't know I possessed. I'd learned that loyalty and kindness weren't weaknesses, even when others exploited them. I'd found out that starting over at 53 was terrifying but possible. Emily was somewhere out there, living whatever life she'd managed to salvage. Marcus too, I didn't wish them harm, but I didn't wish them well either. They'd become irrelevant to my story, footnotes in a chapter I'd closed and moved past. Anna touched my arm. You okay? You got quiet. Yeah, I said, meaning it completely, just thinking about how things change. She smiled, understanding without needing details. That was the difference. She knew me, really knew me, and chose me anyway. I looked around at the people gathered in my home, at the life I'd built from the ruins of betrayal. This wasn't revenge. Revenge had been the exposure, the evidence, the systematic dismantling of their lies. This was something better, freedom. The freedom that came from refusing to let someone else's betrayal define me. The freedom of knowing I'd handled the worst moment of my life with dignity and strength. I'd been tested, broken down, and forced to rebuild, and I'd emerged not bitter, but better. Some people spend their whole lives avoiding hard truths. I'd faced mine head-on, dismantled the lies, and walked through the fire. And on the other side, I found myself again. That night, after everyone left and Anna had fallen asleep beside me, I lay in the darkness thinking about that first email, the one that had shattered everything. Last night was perfect, he has no idea. She'd been right, I'd had no idea, but once I did, I'd made sure everyone else knew too. Not out of cruelty, but out of a bone-deep need for truth and accountability. I closed my eyes, feeling the peace that came from knowing I'd done what needed to be done. No regrets, no lingering what-ifs. Just the quiet satisfaction of a man who'd lost everything and rebuilt something real. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was a story about refusing to be a victim, about taking control when life spun out of control, about discovering that the end of one story could be the beginning of something better. I'd survived, more than that, I'd thrived. And that was the best justice of all. If you stuck with this story to the end, and you enjoy revenge tales where justice isn't handed out, it's earned, then do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It tells me you want more stories like this, and trust me, there are plenty more coming.